Parents, did you know that according to medical news today, that up to 20% of us are estimated to have some sort of food intolerance? That seems like a lot to me. I mean, honestly, I'm a human trash can. But when you break down how many people struggle with things like wheat, barley, milk, cheese, bananas, avocados, etc. I mean, I've heard lots of different sensitivities lately. It's no longer just gluten and dairy that are the major culprits. Why is this happening? Is the food quality different? Is it the enzymes that we produce? Is it everything? If your kiddo has been struggling with food intolerances or allergies and you have done it all and you still haven't found out why, then lend me your ear. I'm here to help. We want to talk about the root cause of food intolerance, especially if you've tried all of the elimination diets and enzyme supplements. There is more to it, and it's rooted in the brain and the central nervous system. Specifically, it lies within an amazing little nerve that does almost all of the communication from the brain to the gut, the vagus nerve. And we're not talking Vegas like Russ, put $1 and win a car, put $1 and win a car, put $1 and win a car. No, VAGUS. We've got a couple articles on it on our website. The vagus nerve is that parasympathetic monster that controls all of those things. So if you've tried elimination diets, if you've tried supplements, if you've seen multiple pediatricians, specialists, GIs, and you're still looking for that root cause of the food intolerance and the food allergies, and they just won't go away, this is for you. Many times, these food intolerances are driven by the central nervous system and its communication from the brain to the gut. The main pathway that facilitates this communication is the vagus nerve. That's why no matter how much you put in or you pull out of a diet, the way we can really get ahead of this is to understand the signaling where the vagus nerve is telling our gut to take a minor sensitivity or a difference, something is new or not of the norm for me, and it blows it into a full out intolerance. It's kind of like that sensory overload we've been talking about this week, where things like this become things like this. We've seen many situations where children have been put on everything. They've gone from elimination and strict diets to a diagnosis of an allergy, to a gut protocol due to constipation and diarrhea that forms from this big, large change in what they're eating and what we're able to feed them. And it's extremely hard as a parent to see these things happening and doing everything you can. And the problem just keeps morphing, especially if you throw being a picky eater on there because of intolerances to things like texture, smell, or other insensitivities. Now, these food intolerances get us down a frustrating path. And hopefully today we can shed a little bit of light on it. Now, in the traditional medical system, food intolerances are often attributed to imbalance or intolerance or insufficient enzyme production in the digestive system. But why? The underlying reasons of this biochemical reaction to certain foods, it's largely unknown, unspecified, and undetermined. The next stage in digging deeper often involves a referral to a gastroenterologist or a GI doc to examine the gut. And usually they'll recommend eliminating problematic foods. And while this can be effective in some cases, it truly misses that root cause of what's going on. It does not necessarily address why the gut and digestive system is so sensitive and impacted. It simply just takes some things away to try and make a system that's not working well work better under different circumstances. But to really start to understand the root cause of this intolerance, we really have to look at brain to gut communication. This is specifically driven by the vagus nerve, which is a massive sensory nerve that communicates between the brainstem and the internal organs. Specifically, in this case, the digestive system. So many health challenges tend to be rooted within the vagus nerve dysfunction because it connects to so many different things. Now, if you were to say, well, why are you talking about this? Neurologically focused pediatric chiropractic care comes into play here. When we talk about birth trauma, such as hard labor, the use of Pitocin, very long labors, use of helpful things like vacuums, that big suction, forceps, or even C-sections, we know that there is trauma, irritation, interference, subluxation, whatever you want to call it, that is inflicted on these delicate areas of this newborn perfect baby's nervous system, specifically in the upper part of the neck and the brainstem, which, guess what? That's where the origination of the vagus nerve is. So, if our first seconds into the world are having a ton of stress and strain from a distraction pulling perspective on this sensitive area, well, then it follows that a neurological imbalance here at that vagus nerve can adversely affect what's going on with the communication between the brain and the gut, which is going to affect the gut's function and lead to problems with absorption, digestion, and elimination of foods and toxins. And it's simply due to the messages being altered. The digestive system gets more inflamed and susceptible to certain foods, and the signal, being garbled, is telling us to take a minor sensitivity or difference and turn it into a full-blown intolerance. A huge amount of the children that I see that come in for care start life with a history of a significant stress during the birth process. Now, even a perfect, normal vaginal birth has a stress associated with it from a compressive nature, which is why we always say, mamas, we talk about fourth trimester care, get yourself taken care of, get your baby checked immediately. But when we start to add in some of these helpful things, like forceps and vacuum and C-sections, we go from a compressive force, which is kind of that kickstart for the nervous system to get rolling, to a pulling, twisting, distractive force. And you don't have to be a physicist to know that compression and distraction are two vastly different stresses. Now, this leads to autonomic dysfunction through irritation of the vagus nerve, and since that autonomic nervous system is the boss for pretty much everything else, it's responsible for regulating bodily functions. This is why so many kids that develop food intolerances usually start with reflux and colic and poor sleeping habits and immune issues and things like asthma and ear infections. So to sum it up, the GI system does play a role, and I'm not saying that these sensitivities don't exist. But what I know is in many of these cases, that vagus nerve specifically is not communicating between the brain and the gut in the way that it's intended to. And this starts its own perfect storm. Instead of babies growing out of things like colic and reflux, they grow into more serious challenges. These are things like chronic ear infections, sensory processing challenges, and food intolerances. And when enough of these things build up, they turn into anxiety and depression. So parents, if your kiddos are struggling with these sensitivities and intolerances, and you've tried all sorts of other things, and you've either plateaued or hit a brick wall, it's time to give us a call. I'm here to help your kids. I'm here to help your family. I'm here to help you moms and dads. Can't wait to meet you. Can't wait to see you. I'll see you soon. Take care.